final webinar that we're doing as part of our boot camp series this week for our upcoming virtual career fairs next week that we're having here at Fresno State, starting with our STEAM virtual career fair on Tuesday. Today we are super excited to have an employer join us who has recruited at Fresno State for a very long time and has been on the other side of the table, per se, when you think about a job fair. Normally in person, they were at the Save Mart Center, and we would have tables set up with employers on one side and students walking around the Save Mart Center in the other, asking questions and looking for potential jobs and internships with that company. So today, we thought it would be fun for you to hear directly from an employer who's recruited quite a bit at Fresno State, Jackie Kennedy Harris, who also happens to be an alum from Fresno State, just a few years back, right, Jackie?
Right. Just a few.
Just a few. And it will be fun to get her perspective on what she would expect as a recruiter attending a job fair from our students, and she's recruited on a lot of other campuses in addition to Fresno State. So Jackie, maybe start us off. Tell us a little bit about your career journey after you graduated, kind of what happened to you, what did you get your degree in, and what did you do to get started in your career, and kind of where did you wind up?
Great, awesome, thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this panel. I'm very excited about it. Yes, as Debbie mentioned, I am an alumni. Go Bulldogs. I went to Fresno State. I graduated with a marketing degree many years ago in 1994, okay? And at the time, I wasn't sure which direction I was going in the sense of just really outreaching for positions. And I had a friend that worked for a company called Enterprise that said, you should come work for Enterprise. You have a great personality. They'll train you. I thought, oh, no, let's see. Let me go ahead and see if that's the direction I want to go. And so I ended up interviewing with Enterprise. And when I interviewed, there were actually quite a few that we had classes together. And there were a couple that were kind of really fun and outgoing. And I thought, gosh, well, if they hired you, hopefully they'll hire me. And as it turns out, they did. And so I started in the management training position, and I moved up pretty fast. Became a branch manager, and then I had several branches that I managed, and then we had bought another small rental car company. We had acquired them, Standard Rent-A-Car, and that kind of opened up the doors for me to develop the recruiting department. As I mentioned earlier, I was a marketing major, not a human resources major, so I had to learn the do's and don'ts of the things you can and cannot say. With that, I spent probably most of my career in recruiting. I built the department, I built the team, and I oversaw Stockton to Bakersfield area. So yes, I would visit various campuses. And during that time, Enterprise did buy another company, National Alamo. So now we became a tri-brand company where I was responsible for, and my team, for hiring for National Alamo and Enterprise from Stockton to Bakersfield. So my 25 years with the company, which is the only job I've had out of college, kind of excited me and motivated me to go into doing something independently. And here it is today. I do have my own business, and the company is JKH, Career Coaching and Counseling, and I'm very excited about it. So that kind of gives you a little bit of overview of myself.
Thank you, Jackie. That's great. We love your background, by the way. And students, that's really a good example, because next week's job fairs are virtual, and the importance of how professional Jackie looks and her background says a lot about her professionalism. What a great example you're showing us today, Jackie. We appreciate you spending your lunch hour with us today. We know that you're super busy, so thank you for being available. We're excited to have you here. By the way, students and Jackie as well, we are recording today's webinar, and we've been recording all the webinars we've done all semester. And students, you can go to our Fresno State website. Damien, maybe you can type that in the chat feature. Our website you can find, and you can click on our YouTube icon, and you will be able to rewatch this video and some of the others from this week and previous weeks as well. So just to let you know, you are being recorded. Students, while you're watching the webinar today, we would kind of love to know a little bit about who you are. Could you, in the chat feature, let us know what your major is? That would be really helpful to us today to see what majors that we have here. And we can even give you some suggestions on some of the, okay, we've got liberal studies, biology, computer science, library sciences, ag education, child and family science, biology again. Wow, we have quite a mix of majors here, Jackie.
Yes, yes, that's exciting. Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful. And we've got almost a virtual career fair for each of them because we're doing 3 separate ones. So next question, Jackie. So I personally have gone up to your table. You've been at a lot of job fairs at Fresno State. I personally know that. So when a student comes to a job fair, from your perspective as an employer, what are you kind of looking for in that student? And what are you looking for in how you determine whether that student might be a fit and really fit in with the culture of your organization?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do look for is definitely that student that is very professional. The first impression is very important. The one thing that I find very interesting is when a student will come to my table and they really know very little about the company. That's probably one of the things that you would want to avoid, is not knowing a little bit about the company. I expect to ask certain questions, and because information is available for you, there's usually an overview of the company and what they're looking for that's given to you prior to the career fair. The expectation is that you should know a little bit about the company. From the student standpoint, I think it's important that you seek the companies out that you're interested in. I can give a great example. I remember doing a career fair, and I remember a student that I made eye contact with, and I literally watched to see where that student was going. And that student went to different employers, but yet when I met with that student and what that student was looking for, it didn't really match up with what these companies he went to were looking for. So I think part of it is really being prepared and really having an idea of what you're actually looking for, and know that the employer is definitely going to ask you maybe a couple of questions, to icebreaker questions, and that's something that you would really want to do to research. Think of it as selling yourself from the time you walk up to the table or in a virtual environment.
Thank you, Jackie. I was typing something in the chat feature as you were talking. So thank you for that. So let's talk a little deeper about research. We hear from a lot of employers what kind of annoys them, if I can use that term, is that when a student walks up to a table and says, "So what does your company do?" Right? So when we talk about research, should I Google your company name? What should I do? What would that research look like from your perspective?
Absolutely. With technology, a lot of companies, they have access, obviously the website is available. Companies will put their information up there deliberately in terms of just the company history, how long they've been in business, their market niche, their company culture. And so in terms of research, and we kind of expect for you to know something about the company. Now, it may be hard to maneuver on some sites. It may not be as friendly, if you will. However, most companies will have a fact sheet, and a fact sheet will list about maybe 10, 15 different questions, or answers, I should say, of the company that you can actually study, if you will, and present that to an employer. So though, the website's design really, it's almost a test to see if you've even gone to the website. And even if I'm asking interview questions, I probably will ask you, how long have you been in business? What have you researched? So take advantage of it. That's what it's there for. And again, if it's a situation where you find it very detailed, or too detailed, if you will, most companies will have a fact sheet. The other thing that I was going to mention in addition to that is, if you're interested in a company where, let's just say maybe you have a friend that works there, that's one of the best sources that you can utilize. Meet with that person and find out the good and the bad and the ugly, if you will, about the company. And a lot of companies actually will look at that referral probably over someone that just may be applying because they saw the posting on the internet. Okay. So again, use the website, research, it's there for you. That's what it's for. Take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So those of you students who might be attending one of our career fairs next week or the week after, take Jackie's advice, because I think it does make a big difference. And what's unique, Jackie, have you done a virtual career fair?
I have not done a virtual career fair, but I've been on definitely a lot of webinars, and I think, you know, the same concept of what you would do in a normal career fair, it's a little more intensified, if you will. So there's certain things you have to do that's very cut and dry in a very short time. And so that's going to be the challenge that I think, you know, those who are out taking advantage of the virtual career fairs, being able to stand out in that environment. There's going to be a lot you're going to have to do in a short window.
Yeah, and that research becomes really vital. In our virtual career fair next week, students, you're actually signing up to meet with a company and you have a 10-minute slot. So you better have something to talk about. And I think that research is a comfortable way to have a conversation with an employer, right, Jackie? I mean, something
Absolutely.
that's that you've done your research. So students, if you haven't visited the Career Center, we do have some technology called BuzzFile, B-U-Z-Z, BuzzFile, where you can do company research in addition to your Google search, which would be very important to do. The other is sometimes you can find alums who have worked for the company through LinkedIn as well. So if you need help and you want to see BuzzFile and how it works, or you want to know how to set up a LinkedIn profile, remember, you can visit our Career Cafe Monday through Friday from 10 to 2 on our website. And we have a career peer mentor ready to greet you and to help you. And I see Adrian. Thank you, Adrian and Damien, for helping out today from the Career Center. Our Fresno State website for careers is on there, and Adrian also just put BuzzFile in the chat feature as well. So thank you, Adrian, for doing that. And thank you, Jackie. That's great advice on researching the company. So definitely there is work you got to do prior to going to a career fair, right, Jackie?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You got to do your homework.
Yes.
Do you think virtual, because it is going to be virtual, do you think you have to prepare differently or do things differently than an in-person fair would be?
I think you do. I think it's going to be, you know, making that first impression in a very short time. So I think one of the things that, you know, that's really important, and definitely the preparation piece of it is so crucial. In other words, you don't want to wait till the last minute to log on. You know, you want to be able to give yourself enough time to make sure that the lighting's correct. You have to make sure, you know, I know with technology, sometimes it's easier to do, you know, from your phone, but definitely you do not want to. PC is definitely appropriate. I'm on a laptop and it would be definitely lower, but I have it stacked. Okay, so you do whatever you have to do to kind of get that good eye level, you know, during that time. I also think that definitely in a virtual career fair, you have to be able to sell yourself within that first 30 seconds, if you will. I mean, that's something that you're going to start to notice, you know, how can I keep that attention of that employer and be able to do it in a very short window. As far as the background, I think that's also important. You know, I remember a long time ago when they had, you know, Skype, it was said to have just a very plain white background. I think today I would still say that, but I think it's also an icebreaker for some employers. So I'm not saying to go over the top and have everything in the background, but my example here is maybe something you can use. You want it to look professional, but yet personal in a way. That kind of says a lot about you when you are meeting with the employer, definitely in a virtual environment.
Yeah, that's really a great segue into part of branding yourself, because that's really what the heart of this webinar was about. Today's we tell students, be ready for your 30-second commercial, or they call it the elevator pitch. Well, now we've kind of extended that because you're 10 minutes alone in a room with a employer. What are things you should and you shouldn't share in that introduction? What kind of an introduction would have you looked for to be a really stellar introduction when you were at career fairs listening to students?
Yeah, so introductions for me, I like the short to the point. Definitely nothing's personal per se. If it's not related to a professional, I probably would not mention that. But something as far as introducing yourself, your major, and clearly knowing what you're looking for. Okay, so it doesn't have to be necessarily with a particular company, but clearly knowing the position that you're looking for and why you feel you would be a good candidate based on your past experiences. So look at your work experiences and kind of try to match that up so that that now becomes your intro. It's something that will then be natural when you introduce yourself. It just kind of comes with it. The flow will be very natural. The employer will say, this person kind of knows what they want, as opposed to having a longer, lengthy conversation with very little substance. I always say the shorter the better, but very clear and concise to the point. Your major, what you're looking for, and if there's something that you've been great at while you've been on campus, brag about that. You can include that into your intro. That's something that we want. And I think, again, we're going to keep saying this with the virtual environment. It's probably more crucial now to really be able to feel comfortable in presenting that in that short window.
So Jackie, how about we practice this for a minute? Let's pretend I'm a student and this is a career fair, and I'm walking up to you and I want you to critique what I'm about to tell you. So we didn't practice this, anybody.
No, we didn't.
So,
Yeah.
hi, my name is Debbie and I'm a business major. I'm graduating in May of 2021. While I was going to college, I worked at Taco Bell and I worked my way up to an assistant manager position. I was reading about your management trainee position that you have with Enterprise, and I'm very interested. Could you tell me more? How's that for an intro, Jackie? What could I do to improve that?
Yeah, and I think I would probably throw in, or I shouldn't say throw in, but maybe mention a fact. I know that Enterprise has been around since 1957. I know you have X amount of locations. You want to maybe pick one of the fact sheet, guys. Remember, we talked about the fact sheet. Always have that in the back of your mind. So that's a great icebreaker. Even one fact about the company lets me know that you've done some research. Definitely, you said, Taco Bell, so I think of retail right away. So that's a good match for what Enterprise is looking for, because that's very, people, environment. But again, I think that added icing on the cake, if you will, is just to say, I know your company acquired A, B, C, D, and E. Again, that fact sheet's going to be your lifeline, if you will, to being able to really sell yourself to that company, which again will validate that you've done your research. One more fact in there, I would say, that would have been like, oh, she did some research. That's awesome.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. So we have a question from one of our participants, attendees in the audience, and they're saying, Jackie, is there any difference to approaching an interview with little to no experience as a college student? I think that's a very common concern, is that I may or may not have had part-time work. Is that what else could I tell you about myself?
Great question. Now, volunteer work is definitely accepted as work experience in a lot of cases. So what I would do would say maybe, or if I was a student, I may not necessarily have work experience. However, I volunteered doing A, B, C, and D, whatever the case may be, or you may have been doing some extracurricular activities on campus. You may be involved in a student club. You want to add that in there as well, because what we're looking for is not necessarily the experience per se, but we're looking for the ability. Does this person have the ability to work in a team environment? Do they have the ability to be able to make decisions? And so again, volunteer or even being in a position where you've had to be a part of a team, that's kind of equal to work experience if you do not have work experience. And I would suggest doing volunteer work. If you do not have that, maybe start to build on that just a little bit, so that way you can have a good substance on your resume.
So it sounds like those, even though I'm a student going to school full time, I may or may not be able to work, but extracurricular activities can make a difference as well.
Absolutely.
How do you view internships as experience, Jackie?
Internships is a great way to really not only gain experience, but it gives you a chance to almost market yourself within that company. By that I mean, if you find a company that you're really, really interested in, but they're not hiring full-time, but they are looking at internships, The pay not be great, may not be as great, but the experience is going to be viable, okay? You'll be able to gain a lot of experience, but the thing that you always want to keep in the back of your mind is, if I go over and beyond with this company as an intern, maybe they'll keep me on board and hire me full-time. And a lot of companies that do have internships, they look to hire interns with the intent to keep them once they graduate. So again, internships are really a great way of you gaining that experience. It's almost, I'm interviewing this company as well as they're interviewing me in the form of an internship. You get to see everyone that's there. You get to feel if that's something that you feel you would really excel in. And it's a great way, again, of building your resume, great experience. But ultimately, I know when I hire an intern, I'm looking at that person to hire them full-time once they graduate. It's an investment for the company. So keep that in the back of your mind. Students, you want to be just as professional. Just don't think internships, you're just going to have one interview and that's it. You want to interview as if you'd already graduated, okay? Because that's your chance to shine and continue to shine so that the company will want to keep you once you're actually done with school.
Great advice. And I think many employers would totally agree with you on that. Sometimes we have students that have a hard time making a connection with what they're doing in college to that being a skill that they gain. That, let's take teamwork, right? So because I saw that we have some biology majors, I think sometimes students have a hard time making the connection between like a class project they had or research that they did or a team project they did. And how does that relate to the workplace and what's the crossover? I think they don't always relate what they do in the college classroom as a skill that they gain that you might value as an employer. How do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Biology is a great example. Let's just say that you have a student that's working, on a project, very hands-on. Each student's going to have a certain role as a part of that team. And so for me as an employer, I would say, okay, what skills would actually derive from this person being involved in this project? So I'd probably ask the question, you were involved in a project, what was your role? So I'm trying to see, were you the leader? Were you the one that was taking the initiative? Even though you may think it's not work experience, working in a project, there's a lot of hands that's involved in it. You may be the person that will say, okay, no one cover their weight. I'm going to step in and finish it and get everything done so we can all get an A, right? So employers are looking at that as, is that person willing to go the extra mile? And so take your experience, if it is in a project-based environment, use that to your advantage when you're asked those questions. Don't think so much as work experience necessarily, but maybe working on a project and knowing what your role was. So if you know that when you do a project, you're the one that keeps everything organized, then that's leadership, right? You want to brag about that, If you're the one that kind of waits behind and just not really as aggressive, then you may not want to go into a position where you need to be aggressive, right? So you start using those things as you develop to help you guide yourself in terms of your career path and what position would fit into your personality. What position would be ideal based on your past experience, again, whether it be project-based or, again, going back to volunteer, what role did you play when you did that?
Thank you. That's great. Kind of from just your opinion and all the years of work experience that you have in recruiting, in today's workplace, what soft skills are employers valuing just from your own personal experience? We know communications and teamwork. What other skill sets do you think students really need to hone in and work on to be ready for today's workplace?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned communication skills. I think one of the things that is hard to really kind of train is not only having good work ethic, but being very passionate about something. I think as you interview, employers can tell if you generally have a passion for certain things. It may not necessarily be what they're offering because they may not know what the job is, but they're going to look and dissect your resume and see if you're passionate about certain things. As well as that, W mentioned communication, but I think being in that team environment and being that team player and taking the initiative, being that one that's going to go the extra mile. These, you may think it's not a big deal, but it really is a big deal for an employer if they see those same qualities in an employee, because they're going to look at that person as, we can invest in this person and they can get promoted. So definitely those soft skills are very important. The technical skills, we kind of expect that to a certain degree, but you can't change a person if they don't have certain things. And so, you know, you want to hone in on what you really are comfortable with, what you really are good at. And at the same time, if you are struggling in an area such as maybe communication, then work on that. You have the time to do it, you know, and find out where do you need to balance that to get that where you need it to be so that you feel more comfortable with it. But definitely a lot of those things that you mentioned, passion, I think is probably the one that I think about, good work ethic. Those are things that it goes a long way with an employer because those are skills that we really can't train you on per se. You kind of have it or you do not. So think about that as you're, you know, looking for jobs and different employers and positions. You know, will those things fit into that? You know, am I that person that I want to be the communicator? I want to be out there. Am I really passionate about doing this? You know, am I willing to go the extra mile? These are things. Am I assertive? Am I, you know, willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done? These are things that you may not think is important, which is definitely crucial for a company that's very, especially if it's team oriented. You got to have those skills. Have to.
Thank you. I think that passion, you have to really work on that when you're in virtual mode.
Yeah.
It's just interesting, you know, we go to so many webinars and often students will say, oh, it's so boring to sit and listen to a talking head. Well, that's true of us when we're presenting as well. It's hard to show passion through something like through a Zoom interview or whatever that might be. We have a couple of questions in the chat feature that are really kind of specific to Fresno State. I know one student is asking about jobs with OPT for an international student. That's probably beyond the realm of Jackie's expertise. So I'm going to refer that student probably to visit the Career Center. I think you're a biology major. To get OPT, I would suggest that maybe you make an appointment with your career counselor, which would be Daniel. And then the question about library science as well and gaining experience in that, Adrian's answering that. And also you might want to visit Jody Bieram in our office as well. So those are kind of very major specific questions that I think we could probably help you with in the Career Center, but keep the questions coming. We love it. It makes
Absolutely.
it interactive. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Jackie, is there anything what would you consider unprofessional, whether in person or online? What would be some things that students maybe shouldn't share or do in an interview? When you say be professional, what things should I avoid?
Yeah, I think online it's going to be very different in the sense where you have to have that person's attention. And it's very easy to get distracted with things that are maybe to the side in front of you. You know, one of the things that I always say, you know, when you're interviewing is that to have that eye-to-eye contact. And it's a little bit different because if I'm, you know, looking at Debbie right now, I'm not really looking directly at the camera, but yet we want you to look directly at the camera, right? So try to have really good eye contact, smile. I know sometimes you don't think about it, but when we're asking questions and you go into this think mode, you tend to be serious about it. And so you're gonna have to practice smiling. That's the one thing that I will say that comes out even more so virtually. You know, they say don't move your hands around. And I'm a person that I do this all the time. So trust me, I'm under the table doing the same thing because that's how I operate. But I know in the virtual world, I can't move my hands like I normally would, right? So just, you know, even practicing, you know, is a great way of just seeing how do I really present myself? Am I close enough? Is there any distractions? Am I on a cell phone where, you know, you can see everything moving around? Is the background, is the sound, is the lighting? So these are things that you really don't think about. But I think it goes back to that, you know, the preparation piece of it. Don't wait until the last minute to log on. You know, test out everything first, your lighting, the background, the noise reduction. You don't want any distractions because, again, that small 15-minute window should be solely between you and that employer, and they should be able to get from that 15-minute that either I want to hire this person and put them on to a second interview, or they just didn't do well and not get hired on. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind. You know, definitely eye to eye. Again, no chewing gum. Smile. I think smiling more than anything. No chewing gum. I know sometimes it's hard because you kind of get nervous, but again, you want to be able to spend that 15 minutes with just a very good eye-to-eye contact the best you can and smiling. You want to be very personable. It's hard to be personable sometimes over virtual, but I think smiling is a great way of conveying that.
Thank you. For those of you that might have missed Tuesday's webinar, I think it was Daniel and Nora did a workshop on a professional presence, and they discussed some of the same things that Jackie is talking about as well. Eating is not okay on an interview. I don't know. I know that people, when they get nervous, they get kind of a dry throat. What about if you took a sip of water? Would that be okay, do you think?
Yeah, I think a sip of water is okay. What you really need to do is follow the person that's interviewing you. So if you see the employer take a sip of water, then you know, okay, I can do that too.
Okay, good advice.
Yes.
I'm sure there's questions maybe students are too embarrassed to ask, but it's okay. We won't tell anybody. There's only a few of us. So, excuse me, Adrian's doing a great job answering the chats.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see anything specific to Jackie right now. What other suggestions on that whole branding yourself? Anything else on how you market and brand yourself at all? Any other thing in that area that maybe we could present to students?
Yeah, I think, personal branding is important, whether it be a student or whether it be even in your employment. You want to be able to have folks identify you based on certain things. For example, if I went to someone and said, okay, name 3 things that you noticed about Jackie, it's probably going to be very consistent with more than one person, okay? And you may say to yourself, well, how do I develop that? The one thing that's so important, it has to be genuine. There's no way that you're going to be able to pretend to be a certain way when you're not. So for me, I can use myself as an example. I enjoy people definitely, generally. I'm very high energy. I love to smile. I love to talk. And so I've been able to really brand myself as that happy person. She's always happy, right? And that carries through, and even in your career. How do you separate yourself from other employees? You're up for promotion, maybe you apply for it internally, and you have 5 other candidates that's internal employees that's applying. How are you going to be the one that may stand out even within that? So now is a great time as a student to really try to start developing your brand. You want people to know you as a certain, that's the person that will always get the job done. That's the person that they'll follow up on their emails right away. Start thinking of things that you do that come so naturally to you and start building on that, because that's how you develop your brand. You want people to recognize you, by who you are, your characteristics, certain things. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you want your professors to say, oh, I know Jackie, she's A, B, C, D, and E, right? So you want to be able to be consistent in how you brand yourself, but that's going to come from you knowing what you really, really, your natural ability, and then building on that.
That's great. And I think branding yourself is maybe something business students hear a lot. I'm not sure that other majors always hear that. So I think that's really good advice, because we have such diversity in the majors that we have today. Adrian, I think you just posted something, personal branding.
Okay.
He's got a lot of information on exactly what Jackie's talking about on our website as well.
Awesome.
So here's another kind of interesting dilemma that we hear a lot from the student side is, we're telling students, you should go to career fairs and meet with employers as early as your freshman year. How do you as an employer, how do you see a freshman and a sophomore? I'm not ready to get a job or an internship yet. Why would I want to go meet you at the job fair as a freshman?
That's a great example of actually branding yourself. And I say that because I have many, many students that have attended career fairs right when they got to college, sophomore year. And I'm like, oh, you got a few more years, let's keep in contact. And they consistently will come to my table up until the point that they're seniors. And it's like, I'm finally graduating. And guess what? I've developed a relationship with that person. Every year I know they're going to come out, and I know the personality. Even though they know we may not be hiring, they're going to come by and say hi. So definitely use that to your advantage. You have to be able to market yourself. That's the only way that you're going to stand out. You can't, and again, the way employers are going to remember you, it may not be by your name, but it's going to be by your personality, maybe, right? So you want to be able to be involved in these career fairs, even if they're not hiring, still participate, because what you're doing is you're putting your face out there so that every time a career fair comes up, I'm going to go, wow, that person they're really proactive. They attend all the career fairs, even though they know, we're not hiring until they're close to graduate, and they're still participating. I like that. So you want to be able to market yourself. That's the only way that you're really going to be able to really stand out. And don't wait until the last minute for sure. Definitely take advantage of, and then it helps you out. The person that may come to my table, or if it's in a virtual environment, they may be nervous initially, but I guarantee by the time that they're a senior, they feel very comfortable doing that. And I think use that as a training tool, to be able to better yourself in terms of just being able to come up to an employer, because that's the one thing that I notice. Sometimes students are shy. I got to get them to come on over, guys, and then the ones that may be shy, by the time the seniors, they just walk up. They get it, okay? So take advantage of that, students. You need to be able to use those resources if it's available to you, whether they're hiring or not, whether, you're graduating or you just got there. Take advantage of attending those career fairs so that way you'll get used to it, so you'll be better prepared when that time comes for you to graduate.
That's excellent advice. I think it is a scary thing to go to. I know when we would have 200 companies at the Save Mart Center, upstairs and downstairs, and you walk in and there's literally 1,000 people in that room walking around. You can kind of see in the students' eyes that this is a little bit of a scary thing. So I think that's great advice. The earlier and more often you attend, the more confidence. So when you really want that job, you're going to have the confidence, because that's what it takes, is confidence, and confidence comes from experience, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me see if we have anything in chat. A student wanted to know who the employers are that's attending our health sciences career fair on October the 15th, and Damien put on there that you go to Hire Fresno State and the list of companies are there. That's good. I'm glad you're asking that, because then I know
awesome.
You want to do your research. You're listening exactly to what Jackie is saying. So Jackie, last question is, do you have any other final advice or any other tips that I haven't asked you about today that you feel are important, that they really need to know going into these career fairs, either this fall or the ones they're going to go to in the spring?
Yeah, I think really going into career fairs, obviously these are going to be employers, okay? Employers that are, in the community. Try to start networking. And by that, I say there are some organizations where they even offer little to anything for students to be involved in, where you can attend different, and now again, everything's virtual, but you can attend, different webinars that they may have. Again, it goes back to being able to market and brand yourself. And a lot of that, even though you're attending the career fair, imagine if you went to a career fair and you're part of a community organization on the student level, and that employer's a part of the career fair. They're gonna know who you are, right? So, and then guess what? It looks good on your resume as well, right? So take advantage of that. You wanna be able to network, prior, ongoing, kind of get your name out there, that personal brand, networking, they kind of go hand in hand. And if you limit yourself, especially now where everything is virtual, it's different. When we had the career fairs, we could have that one-on-one, face-to-face. You have to be the one to take the initiative to sign in and sign up, right? So you want to be able to take advantage of that. Do not be afraid to be involved in, again, any organization, whether, again, if it's community and they have a student option where you can join in on their networking events. Do not be afraid to check into that, because that's something that I promise you will benefit you as you go into your career, as you look at career fairs. You'll see that now you can come in on a professional level because you've learned certain things by networking. You'll have that same demeanor with these employers, and they're definitely going to like that. They will definitely like that.
Thank you so much. We want to take this opportunity today to thank you, Jackie, for being here. I think it's very exciting to see an alum be so successful, and now to share her many years of experience with our students. And that I think she gave us some really good tips today for either attending the job fair or networking events, because everything she's talked about applies to just getting out there and meeting others and being professional and being confident. We want our Fresno State students to represent the university well, and you're branding the university, not just yourself, but the university.
Absolutely.
I also love that you shared, and I share this with students a lot too, is if you interview and you don't get a job, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It could mean maybe you weren't prepared, but it can also mean that sometimes you're not the right fit for that company, right, Jackie?
That is correct. Absolutely.
You're interviewing the company, you know, not everybody is going to fit with the culture of enterprise. And so Jackie would select that way. And that's okay. Your job is to find the company that fits your personality and your work style, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of that comes from, if you think about it, students, if you're working, which of those jobs are you saying, I really like this? And why do I like this position? You know, it may not be a career position, but there's certain things in that you like about that company, that part-time position that you may be working, and build on that, because that's your natural, that's where you enjoy it naturally. So, you know, you want to use that same, focus on the same type of positions that kind of complement your personality, because in that way you have a good match, and that's what employers are looking for. Are they going to fit into the company culture because they're very personable, or it could be a position where it's more behind the scenes and it's very data entry, you know, where they're not reporting and things of that nature, where it may not require that. So the best advice I can give you is look at your resume, and if you don't, again, for those that are may not have a lot of work experience, just think about the things that you've done, project-based, volunteer-based. Matter of fact, in your everyday environment, what do you really like about your friends that are around you? And what is it that you feel comfortable being and doing when you're around them? And a lot of times you can pick up some of the things that are natural for you. Again, find the position that works around your work experience or things that you have a passion for, because that will automatically, you'll shine when you interview with an employer, because it's going to come across very natural, very natural.
Great advice. Thank you again for attending today and taking time out of your busy schedule. Damien, I'm going to throw you on the spot here. Is there any final words you want to give on our virtual career fairs next week? I see you and Adrian have been chatting away. Is there anything you want to share about our virtual fairs next week?
Yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to stop by and sign up for a slot ahead of time. And if you can't sign up, just even stop by in between class. The way that the fair is set up this year, it's more convenient for you. You don't have to go through security at the Safe Mart Center. You don't have to wait in line. You can just pop in and talk to a representative. And just like what Jackie said, it's so important to start, even if you are an underclassman, if you are a freshman, sophomore. It's great to start now. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, awesome. There were a lot of good resources shared in the chat feature. Make sure you visit our Career Cafe 10 to 2, Monday through Friday, and visit with Jacqueline, one of our career peer mentors. So thanks everyone for attending today, and hopefully we see you at the career fair next week. And Jackie, if you could just hang on, that'd be great. Okay, thanks students for attending.
Thank you, students.
Thank you, everyone.